My name's Carl Weimer. I'm the Executive Director of the Pipeline Safety Trust, and I want to welcome you to New Orleans, to our conference this year. We're kind of bulging at the seams, which I think is a good thing. Most of this in this room is being webcast live, too, and normally we have a couple hundred, maybe up to 400 people watching live, so we want to welcome the live audience, too. We're going to get going right early this morning. I'm going to do a little brief introduction, and then we are going to hear from the NTSB. Just to lighten things up a little bit, we're going to talk about some pretty serious issues. But one of the things we really believe in this conference is bringing people together from all different types of perspectives. So I just put this slide up here, and let's try not to get so serious that we don't have a good time while we're here in New Orleans. Just want to talk a little bit about emergency preparedness, because if you've ever been to any of the industry presentations, that I don't care where you are, they always tell you how to get out of the building, and they go through an emergency thing. So I want to talk about that a little bit too. There are exits right here. There's stairs kind of right out this door that go down right into the main room. There's stairs if you go out the other way too. The bathrooms are straight across the hall as far as those needs go. Lunch at lunchtime today is actually in the ballroom downstairs. So you're going to go down the stairs or down the elevator and across the lobby past the little gift shop, and there's a hallway down there, and we'll have some people down there trying to direct you in the right direction. The reception tonight is going to be upstairs, and you have to use this elevator that's right out here. This building is kind of weird. It's different buildings kind of all pieced together, and if some of the elevators just don't go to where you want to go. So this elevator right out here will take you all the way up to the room up on the roof where we have a great view, and that's where the reception is going to be this evening. We also just have we have a breakout room, and I'm going to give people a heads up. We had a snafu with a hotel. We were supposed to have a much larger breakout room, and because of miscommunications or whatever, we ended up with a small breakout room. That's why we sent many of you a survey last week and asked, which sessions are you most interested in attending? Because the breakout room, they told me, will hold 60 people. I just walked down there, and I'm going to be surprised if it holds more than 30. So we've tried to move the breakouts that have the least interest down to the breakout room. This room will be where we'll be doing the other breakouts, but just a heads up, the breakout room's down the hall and up the little stairs off to the left. We also have a room down there right at the end of the hall, the cathedral room, that's set up with 3 tables in it. And if people, I know there's lots of people here that want to discuss things with other people in the room. That room's available during the whole conference if you just want to wander down there and have some, private little meetings or discussions, or go down there to talk on your cell phone or whatever. That room will be open for your use right at the end of the hall. One of the famous things we do is we do a beignet run in the evening. So 9:30 in the evening, anybody that wants to go down to the Café du Monde, we're going to walk down there, have beignets and coffee and whatever. It was interesting last year here. We had some advocates who had strong opinions, and we had the head of API pipelines and AOPL pipelines, and they were sitting across the table dripping powdered sugar all over themselves. It was a great sight to see. And one of the last emergency preparedness thing I will tell you is if you end up in the bar downstairs, that carousel actually goes around. It's not that you've had too many drinks and you go to get off and you're pointing in a different direction. It's actually moving. So I wanted to warn people of that. Just a little bit about who's in the room today. We have about 165 or so people. I lost count the last couple of days in the room. And here's kind of the breakout of who that is. We have 50 to 60 kind of citizen local government advocates in the room this year. We have 18 to 20 regulators, both state and federal regulators. And then we have a whole bunch of people from the variety of industry groups broken out. And this is, I've been waiting for this moment because I go to a lot of different conferences, and I go to a lot of PHMSA technical committee meetings and NACE technical committee meetings, and someone at some point always says, if you're from the gas industry, raise your hand, and if you're from a regulator, raise your hand, and if you're from the public, raise your hand. And often I'll be in a room of 200 or 300 people, and I'll look around, and my hand is the only one up, except Jeff Weiss is usually trying to claim he's public over here, and we have a little argument about that. But this year, anybody that's from the public or local government who's in the room, please raise your hand. You notice that we have really stepped up public involvement this year, and I just want to talk a little bit about how that happened. We really wanted this conversation if you go back to this, and I'm not going to do the whole speech about the three-legged stool, but we really believe for pipeline safety to move forward, it's like a three-legged stool, and each leg, the public, the regulators, and the industry has to be represented to have that discussion. So we've made a real effort over the last year and a half to find public advocates around the country who are interested in pipeline safety and work with them to raise their level of understanding of pipeline issues and get them to events like that. And that's why there's so many in the room here today. A bunch of us actually met in San Francisco in June, and this is a picture from the hotel where we were staying in San Francisco to kind of start that whole process and to meet each other. And there's people from everywhere from Point Barrow, Alaska to Florida that came together, and some of them are in the room today too. You'll see familiar faces. While we were there, we got a tour of the tragedy site in San Bruno and heard from the mayor and the city manager in San Bruno of what went on there, and that kind of set the stage for the discussions we had there in San Francisco. And finally, one of the things we did for these advocates is we drafted 10 briefing papers on a whole range of subjects. You can see the different subjects we did there. And before we met in San Francisco, we sent these briefing papers out every couple weeks for people to kind of read and learn and try to get up to so there's some basic understanding. Because sometimes when you're a citizen advocate, you think there's a problem, but sometimes you just don't know enough to know that maybe there really isn't a problem. And other times, as you learn more, you find out there's other problems you never even dreamed of yet. So we provided these briefing papers, and we were lucky enough to have both industry and regulator people that were reviewing in these briefing papers with us to make sure we were getting stuff accurate. And you'll see some of those people in the crowd today with their name tags on, and they have a white name tag on that says advisor, like David over here from the Washington UTC helped read through the papers and tell us when we had something wrong. There's a couple people from Marathon. Craig, the president of Marathon, was one of our advisors on that. So we tried to make sure we got things right. And that's why there's so many people in the room today, which will make it a richer discussion, might be a weirder discussion in ways too. This is where we're all from. We're actually from, there's 31 different states. The province of Alberta, someone is in the room from Germany and from Bonaire, and I challenge you to figure out where Bonaire is. And like I said, this is being webcast live, and that's courtesy of PHMSA, so we wanted to make sure we thank PHMSA for making sure this is webcast so people who can't get to New Orleans have a chance to see this. Just a real quick thing about what we're talking about. Here's kind of the significant incident trends over the last 10 years or so for the different types of pipelines. As you look at this, you can see that on the top line there is for hazardous liquid pipelines, and the trend is going slightly down, although if you look at the last 5 years, the trend is a little bit concerning. The red line in the middle is natural gas transmission lines. The trend is slightly going up for that one. The other middle, kind of the greenish-yellow line, is distribution pipelines, and that one is trending down over the last 10 years. And then on the very bottom are natural gas gathering lines, and that's been pretty stable. That's a little bit of a phony number because most gathering lines are not regulated to the point they have to report incidents, so there's only a limited number of incidents to even go on there, so that it's not probably a good number to look at. I wanted to show this because this is actually the years, especially for transmission and hazardous liquid lines, when integrity management was kicking in, and that was the system that was going to save us from or reduce the number of incidents. And you know, I think the jury's still out on whether we've done that successfully or not. Of course, the other thing that we're all in the room here today is over the last couple of years we've had a whole series of tragic incidents around the country. So that kind of puts a flavor in here, and there's been more attention to pipelines in the last couple of years than I think many of us ever dreamed there would be. You know, you heard 2 presidential candidates talking about pipelines during the debates. Whoever thought you'd hear that? You had people surrounding the White House about pipelines. There's lots of people talking about pipelines, and sometimes what they're talking about really isn't pipelines, it's about side issues that are related to pipelines. So one of the things I'm just going to try to remind people of here today is that we're really trying to keep our blinders on here and talk about pipeline issues and not get off on some of the tangents while we're here, and the Pipeline Safety Trust tries to do this very very hard, although it's not always easy, because these tangential issues like energy policy and global warming and the development of tar sands and fracking and all those types of things, you know, some of us have strong opinions about those, but we really try to focus on the pipes that are in the ground. So I want to close just by saying, you know, we all agree, whether you're a citizen activist or the industry executives in the room, that what we're really trying to get to is zero pipeline incidents. So we hope we're here today and tomorrow trying to talk about what are ways we can do that. And I want to, if I can figure out the technology, just finish with one. You notice the name of the conference this year is Trust But Verify. And I wanted to finish with a quick little video that talks about where that came from.